This is that special part of the show, special part of the show, when we have a moment or three to spend with demand from TrendsJournal.com. Ladies and gentlemen, the well-respected, well-renowned, and much anticipated Gerald Celente. Gerald, welcome to the show. How you doing?
Oh, thank you. Thank you for the kind introduction. I'm doing fine. We're north of New York City. I want to get out there and have the cameras rolling so I can look like one of those people on TV.
You're going to do your Dan Rather imitation, is that it?
I mean, what a joke. I mean, when are they going to stop with this stupid stuff? Here I am in the middle of a storm. My hair is blowing, you know.
Yeah, what an idiot. What are you doing out in the storm? Did your mother tell you not to go out in the rain? What's wrong with you? Well, you're far enough. You're far enough inland, I would think, not to have to worry too much about water up there. We're in Westchester, right? Outside, right at your new building.
Actually, we're a little north of that. We're about an hour and a half north of New York City,
well, there
Ulster
you go.
County. Yeah. But anyway, you know, it's
enough of that. What do you? This too shall pass. What do you think, Gerald? I mean, you and I, we have these great gaps between our conversations, and all sorts of crap goes down. Things happen, mostly the stuff that you've predicted in Trends But I get the sense, the hurricane notwithstanding, that things are picking up speed. What do you think?
Well, they definitely are. Where they're really picking up speed, Brian, is over in Europe. And the system is breaking down totally. There's no way out of this. You have millions of people taking to the streets in Italy and in France, in Spain, excuse me. In Italy, Spain, Ireland, they're in a depression. Portugal, Greece. And the only solution they're coming up with, but this is really the big news, is that all of the countries now will be losing their sovereignty. And this is totally against the Maastricht Agreement, which put together the European zone, the Eurozone, with the euro dollar. And it's all going to be under the power of a central bank. They're doing this in broad daylight, and it's off the radar screen of virtually everyone. So now you're going to have the European Central Bank gaining this unprecedented power, kind of like our Federal Reserve System, where all of the nations in Europe are going to lose their sovereignty, and they're going to have an economic minister look at everyone's budgets to see whether or not they fall in line with the broader commission.
How parental.
So there is a new world order. And it's not the Illuminati, you know, hiding behind, you know, in Bohemian Grove or at the Bilderberg. It's right in everybody's face. The New World Order is the banking order. The banks have taken over the world. And I'm not just spouting this out as, oh, my God, this guy's out of his mind. No, the facts are there. And I'll give you another fact. Under Obama, the 7 largest banks, beginning with the Bush TARP program under Henry Paulson, they had essentially 60% they were controlling of the marketplace financially in the United States. Now they have 80%. They're controlling 80% of the action. And now you're going to go to Europe, and they're going to control 100% of it. It's a banking takeover like no one has ever witnessed in the history of civilization.
Help me out on the Germans on this thing, Gerald. I thought that Merkel and the Germans had a pretty stiff neck about this. If anything, they'd be the ones sitting on top of the world.
You see, that was the hype that everybody and myself bought into. But then you see who was losing the money. It wasn't like the banks in Spain and Ireland and Portugal and Greece lost the money. No, those banks borrowed it from the German banks. Deutsche Bank, Commerzbank. Commerzbank has been bailed out a number of times by the Germans. The same thing with the French, Société Générale. That's why the French and the Germans are so much in favor of this, because it's the banks that loaned the other countries' banks the money that they can't get back now. So the Germans played the game like, oh, we're against this, but no, they're all for it. As a matter of fact, they had a Supreme Court ruling in September whether or not it's against the German Constitution
Right.
for them to be
Right.
doing this.
Mm-hmm.
And as you well know, the Supreme Court folded. Supreme Court. They're no more supreme than any other court.
Where's the Bernanke connection in all this? There has to be a helicopter bend scenario.
Well, there is. You saw that one-time reporting that came out because of Ron Paul under the auspices of Dodd-Frank, when they were forced to report how much money they gave out. And we saw that the Federal Reserve dumped into the world financial system, including all the bailouts here, an estimated, you ready? 22 trillion with a T. 22 trillion. You know where the money went to? Bank of Japan, Bank of Scotland, Deutsche Bank, Societe Generale, Dexia, all throughout the world. So they're all in this together. You know, in the summer edition of the TrendsJournal, we had a cover of Jesus driving the money changers out of the temple. But of course, this time we had names on them. You know, they were Goldman Sachs, Wells Fargo.
Right.
But when you really, Brian, when you think about this, you know, we could joke about it, but this is as old as history. Think about this. The only time that the Prince of Peace becomes violent, is when he picks up a whip to drive the money changers out of the temple. And the reason he was doing it was because they were destroying everything around them. And they're destroying the people today. How many people are losing their homes? How many people, look what this great college scam. How could they let kids, 18, 19 years old, take out these loans and become indentured servants for the rest of their lives? How could they bankrupt countries? So nothing has really changed. Only the names changed. Now they don't call themselves bankers anymore. They call themselves money changers. Now they're financiers.
Well, that's what can you say? It's the leopard doesn't change his spots. But what about the upcoming election, Gerald? I mean, certainly if we have a change in the Oval Office, then everything will be staunched, and we can all go to the seashore if there's any left.
Well, you mean replacing the Bananos for the Gambinos?
Yeah, that's right.
I mean, come on, this is kid stuff. You know, it's a disgrace as I see it. I'm a political atheist, as you know. I don't believe in this stuff. And these are two boys. I don't know how any American can call themselves proud when this is all we have to choose from. An empty suit and a stuffed shirt. You know, there's not a dime's worth of difference between them, only in their rhetoric and their performance levels, as I see it. And you know our motto, think for yourself. And as I see it, and again, you know, I've had experience in this. I was the assistant to the Secretary of the New York State Senate, taught American politics and campaign technology at St. John's, and I was a government affairs specialist in D.C. in the 70s, and I used to represent the chemical industry. So, you know, I know what it looks like. And one of our chief writers in the TrendsJournal is Dr. Paul Craig Roberts, the former Assistant Treasury Secretary under Ronald Reagan. Now, this is a disgrace the way I see it. As I said, I don't know how any American could call themselves proud after seeing the performance in the debates of these two guys.
Well, that's certainly made for great comedy, if nothing else. Watching that dance from all areas, you know, not just the two candidates, but the moderators, so-called moderators, and it was all great for talk radio, not so great for the country. Do you concur, Gerald, that we've been saying here that the decision between candidate A and candidate B was really a matter of velocity, not direction, when it came to the future of the country? Is that a fair assessment? Yeah.
Who's going to destroy it the quickest or the slowest? You know, that's about the velocity we're looking at. And as you mentioned, who made this stuff up, Brian? I listened to this guy, every one of these prostitutes that got to ask the question. These are my questions, and I'm going to be nobody. Who gave you the right to ask these questions? I'll tell you why. Because you're a prostitute. You've been sucking up and bowing down all these years, and now you get to ask the questions. Do you know what Bob Schieffer, the guy who did the last debate, you know what the last question he asked Kerry and Bush in 2004? This one was one of those times when you wish you had a gun to blow apart your television set. He asked them, he goes like this, he goes, you know, the three of us have something in common. We all have strong wives. Oh, great, man. Oh, that's terrific. You know, how did you get into this deal? And here he is again. So, no, this is all show. It's the presidential reality show. The velocity is who's going to destroy what the quickest or the slowest, and I give it a toss-up. No matter who, and the big thing news is that we're following the Trends Journal. There's a war going on. The first great war of the 21st century has begun. And it's not in people's heads yet. There's a war in Yemen, there's a war in Bahrain, there's a war in Kuwait. It's heating up over there. Tens of thousands of people are taking to the streets in Jordan. There's a war in Syria, there's a war in Libya, there's a war in Mali rather. There's millions of people taking to the streets throughout Europe. How much more proof do people need to see what's going on? Oh, the war in Libya is now, Syria is now spread over to Turkey and into Lebanon. Oh, Israel's going to attack Iran. They're talking about that. And now we have two men in the White House, two little chicken hawks that have never fought a day in their lives, talking tough about what they're going to do.
Yeah, the irony is palpable on all that. I guess what everybody wants to know, which they can certainly circumvent the anxiety of not knowing by getting by going to the Trends Journal. TrendsResearch.com is the place for that. Now the fall issue just came out. The winter, it'll be January. It'll be after the election for the next one. I know you've got stuff in that you're working on. What should we look forward to?
I could tell you what the cover is going to be. I just decided last week. It's going to be about peace. And that's going to be the big issue. Because these psychopaths are going to get us killed. Listen to that Obama. Listen to that little boy. Gets on an airplane just before he's about to go to Rio with his wife, his mother-in-law, and his kids. He goes to the stage and says, we're going to launch a humanitarian mission over there in Libya. Oh, wonderful job. Wonderful job. You think they care about Libya if their major export was broccoli and not sweet crude oil, most precious on the planet? Oh, yeah, now they're talking tough about Syria. These people are going to get us killed. They've lost in Afghanistan. They've lost in Iraq. That was under Bush. Now they're talking tough again. And when all else fails, you follow the timeline. The crash of 1929, the Great Depression, currency wars, trade wars, World War. The panic of 08, the Great Depression, it's going on now. The currency wars are heating up. So are trade wars. Now they're going to take us to World War. That's what we're concerned about the most. Whether it's a false flag or real. And remember, I say false flag, and I mean that sincerely. Hey, you remember those weapons of mass destruction, don't you, that Bush told us about?
Sure.
And ties to Al-Qaeda that never existed.
Never.
And you remember the Gulf of Tonkin incident that never happened the way they said they did.
Yeah, we were talking about that earlier today. Yep.
So this is what our major concern is. The timelines are playing out. History is repeating itself. And what we're urging all people is to look at this very closely and stop this trend from moving forward. That is our greatest fear. That's what the Trends Journal of the winter edition is a lot going to be about. Because if we go to war against Iran, we're saying this is the beginning of World War III. There's no way out.
You got to put odds on that, Gerald?
Well, you know, that guy Netanyahu, I mean, who would have believed this? I have to tell you, I take affront to this. They're running ads in Florida because that's a big swing state and a heavy Jewish population with Benjamin Netanyahu The Prime Minister of Israel doing his cartoon thing with the bomb that's going to explode any moment, drawing the red line across it. And they're running ads all throughout Florida with billboards, etc., saying how we have to watch out against Iran and support Israel. I take affront to a foreign country intervening in our election. So when is it going to happen? When you go to Haaretz, the Israeli newspaper, and they're now saying because of the deal that Netanyahu just made with the Likud party being run by Lieberman, the different Lieberman than the one over here, but just as out of his mind as the one over here, they're looking at war to happen very soon. And again, these are the Persians. They've been around for 5,000 years, the Iranians, or more. They're not going anywhere. This is not Iraq. There's 70 million of them, very educated people, and if they're attacked, all of the trend forecasting, buying gold, doing this, doing that, it won't be worth anything if it's a world at war. Brian, I was brought down by Virginia Military Institute, VMI, in 2000 with General Anthony Zinni. They brought me down when I came out with Trends 2000 to talk about New Millennium Warfare. You know how they say the generals keep fighting the last war? This will be a war of weapons of mass destruction. It'll be a war of suitcase-sized nukes. It'll be a war of biological warfare. It'll be a war of hell. And that's what we want to stop.
Well, there's certainly no lack of support for the efforts in that. But I have to ask you, from a TrendsJournal perspective, you've been blowing the horn on these warnings now with accuracy and credibility for a pretty good while. Do you see the possibility that the American people are going to react appropriately?
No, not when they're going to go out to the polls and vote for a lesser of two evils. And that's the way we see it doing it. People have to break their belief systems, and then until that happens, I don't see it happening. Until people start finding the greatness within themselves and rising to higher levels and stop looking for somebody else to bail them out, nothing is going to change, is the way I see it. It's up to the people. It's up to the individuals. You think for yourself. I've known you for a long time. You say what you believe, and you say it based on facts. And that's what more and more people need to do. They have to find the truth within themselves. When they find that, then everything will change.
Well, from your lips, Gerald, or from TrendsJournal, as the case may be. Thanks again for the time. Thanks again for the information and the work. And stay on higher ground and stay dry.
Okay, thanks a lot, Brian.
Thank you, Gerald. Gerald Celente, TrendsJournal, TrendsJournal.com, TrendsResearch.com, and